अरे यार, what happened, bro? How are you?
Bro,
What's up?
left me, bro.
And that's like the third time this month I'm hearing about it.
No,
Come
bro.
on.
It's the sixth time.
Oh, oh my god. Was this the train again?
Yeah, bro.
Wow. I mean, Delhi Metro, right? Zindabad.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've got just the episode for you and for our listeners. I mean, we are Kapow. We are India's first theatrical comic rock band. And Ritik, you can stop your crying acting now.
Okay.
That is really bad. Well, this is Kapow Plus, and you're listening to us where we collide with the rest of the world. We talk to bankers, we talk to psychotherapists, we talk to physicists, take any other industry, and we listen to them, how they perceive our music, what do they think about it. I mean, I am Vinod, I'm the guitarist of the band.
And I'm Ritik, the keyboard player of the band. And up next, we have a great song for you, which talks about what my act was about, existential crisis, when everything goes wrong. My bad. Goes wrong. So let's not wait until I mess up more and let's get straight into the song. And this is Ghadi Ghadi.
घड़ी घड़ी लफ्ज मेरे करते बगावत तेरे लिए घड़ी घड़ी अल्फाज तेरे गूंजते बस मेरे लिए स्याही पन्नों से खोने लगी धड़कने भी है डरने लगी सहम से गए हैं बादल यहाँ घड़ी की टिक टिक भी थमने लगी घड़ी घड़ी लफ्ज मेरे करते बगावत तेरे लिए घड़ी घड़ी अल्फाज तेरे गूंजते बस मेरे लिए आँखों पे पर्दा सिल है गया खोया था तुझको मैंने कहा पतझड़ से चेहरे पे झूठी हंसी घड़ी की सुई अब चलती नहीं साया तेरा जैसे जुगनू पाया खोया मैंने सब कुछ रातों को रोया ना मैं हूँ सोया टिक 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 हर पल मैं गिनूं घड़ी घड़ी अश्क मेरे चीखते हैं किस्से तेरे घड़ी घड़ी अश्क मेरे तस्वीर पे तेरी गिरे.
As musicians and songwriters, people often expect us to write music that is raw, honest, and based on true events. And then there are songs like Scooby Doo Jackie Chan that we have written where these lines sort of get blurred. Even we are not sure what's real and what's imagined. It's chaotic, it's disjointed, and to some it appears funny also. And that mess, that disconnection between what we are actually trying to say and how it comes out to the rest of the world is exactly the point of the song. Because the mind doesn't always speak in full sentences and the identity doesn't always arrive in one piece. Today's guest is someone who helps people sit through this noise and make sense of it. So, this is Kapow Plus, a show where a rock band collides with the rest of the world. And this is Eternal Ramblings, your host. Here we sit down with people from completely different fields and have a chat with them about how music and their fields collide. So, this guest is someone I've had the pleasure of having some interesting conversations myself, and I've seen her embrace both the stage lights and the crisis lines and somehow stay rooted in both of them. She holds a master's in clinical psychology from Newcastle University, has a bachelor's from Delhi University, and she's currently the psychological safety manager at the big community in North Yorkshire, where she works alongside NHS 111 to support people, maybe some troubled musicians as well, to navigate the psychological stress. And that's just a tiny fraction of what all she has been doing so far because she has worked across mental health support, education, research, curriculum design, and has been part of various media art forms, dance, theater endeavors. So she's someone who understands both the science of the mind and the language of emotion, which in my opinion, makes her the perfect guest for today's episode, where we try to unravel this very chaotic human experience. So help me welcome a brilliant mind, a lifelong friend, and someone who's helped many people, including me, better understand the things we all struggle to say a little bit. Let's make some noise for Gurangi Mittal. So how are you?
I am great. I am coping, but I'm great. How are you?
Same, coping. Life gets hard sometimes. Yeah. And being a musician, it's not always easy. But tell me about the weather there. How's there?
It's London. I see all the climates and weathers in 1 hour. It's raining, then it's like hail, and then the sun's out, and you're sweating. At the moment, it's about to rain, I think. Yeah. Like my window's right behind, right in front of me, and it's not looking good.
So do you remember? Yeah.
I was just about to say, like, it's one of the things that, back home, whenever it used to be like rainy, it was like, oh, मौसम कितना अच्छा है. यहाँ पर the second it's rainy, it's like, bro, nah, ये तो नहीं हो पाएगा.
I miss rains. Delhi is so hot. It's progressively getting more and more hot as June rolls in. So it's not something that I'm happy that you're there because you don't have to go through this as much as you're missing this. Trust me, you're not. So do you remember the first time that we met? I think it was one of Kapau's show only.
Yeah. So it was one of Kapal's shows, and like if I go back into it, and I think I've like spoken to you about this so many times, but I think for me it was, of course, I've known your bassist Syra, like from my undergrad, from my theater society, and this that. But with you, I remember particularly it was during the lockdown. And I had like come across this reel of yours where you were singing "Don't Stop Me Now." And it just randomly came on my explore, and it was like, I don't know, 2 a.m. and I was just doom scrolling, and I was like, this is so good. Who is this man? I in fact remember I sent it to like a couple of friends of mine as well, and I was like, he's so talented, what? And then I don't know, a year went by or something, and I was just on a call with Syra, and I was with her, and she was like, oh yeah, I'm starting to like, I'm gonna start being a bassist for this band named Kapow. And I was like, wait, I've heard of that. And then I looked it up, and I was like, oh, it's that guy. So that was like my first.
I was never aware of this story to
Oh,
this sort of.
well,
Okay, cool.
Than that. So that's how like I had heard of you all. And then of course, like I had met you in person for the first time when I came for one of your first gigs at the Piano Man. And it was so good. It was so good. It always is, but I had so much fun. It was amazing.
Yeah, like that is always my question to people, like especially people who are close to me. Ki, what was the what was the first thing that you sort of associated with the band when you saw them on stage? Like okay, this is what's different about these guys or this group.
I think you guys are just like very, very energetic. And I think one of the best things, one of the main things that I really appreciate about each member of yours is that you all really bring each other up. Whenever you feel that one of your members is, just playing the instrument or not being very active, you will do a little improvisation and do like hit them on the head or hit them on the shoulder or like just interact with them on stage so that they also get the limelight. And I think that's so lovely. That's so wonderful because not a lot of bands do that. It's usually the front man who's like, oh, I'll get all the attention. But you guys really distribute it very well. And I absolutely love that. You guys add a lot of humor. You guys, of course, very, very talented, obviously. And yeah, and I think the way you include your audience with everything that you do as well is so, so lovely. And way to go, guys. Way to go.
I mean, yeah, we love each other on stage, but we kind of make it up for all the love on stage with all the arguments off stage. So I think balances it out. Uh, so later on, I remember having a chat with you, and inadvertently we started talking about what you do and about psychology and philosophy, and I shared my I had some interest uh, in very very newbie sort of an interest in both those fields very briefly, and then you started talking and I was very excited first of all, because very rarely I find people who are working on the front lines, as you say. So tell me a bit more about how you got into it. I honestly, I've also not a great memory. So I remember the conversations, the ideas that we talked about, but I sort of have forgotten about how you got to where you are.
So, talking about the psychology bit of it or the mental health bit of it, I mean, I do what I do because I struggled with my own mental health. I mean, I think I was 14 and in a very dramatic way, if I put it, just everything that you can imagine that could go wrong in a 14-year-old's life was going wrong in mine. And, I used to live with a lot of guilt issues. So I decided not to speak to anyone about it because I thought if I tell anyone about it or anything, it'll be a burden to them. So I was like, nah, it's okay. I can handle. Um, it comes to September, and I think it was one of my first exams, like the midterm exams that you have in school, and it was social studies. And I absolutely despise social studies. And I remember in the morning, I just had like my glass of milk or whatever, and I was just about to leave for the bus. And I just fainted. Like I just fainted. My body went fully numb. I had like a little short-term memory loss. I was like, shivering, and it was very scary because it looked like a seizure, and I didn't know what was going on. My mom didn't know what was going on. It was just two of us at home, and it was a very panicky situation. And then we were like, okay, whatever. I can't, after a bit, like after 30 minutes or something, I got better. But it was, of course, very concerning. But we just thought that maybe it was just like because, as I said, I used to hate SST. So it was just like, okay, maybe it was just like exam panic or whatever. And, or like mom was just like, okay, maybe she wanted to skip the exam because honestly, could be. And yeah, except after that, like next few whatever days, I started having these episodes very frequently. Like I would have this like 3 times a day, 4 times a day. And how I explain this feeling would be that I felt like my nervous system would just glitch. Like in the very layman terms, that's how I can explain it. And I remember it got so concerning. So we went to the neurologist because we were like, okay, we don't know what's going on. And I told the neurologist everything, and he was like, right. I am going to refer you to the HOD of psychiatry, get some help. And I was like, oh, wait, what? And I was surprised because I didn't know anything about psychology at that
I
age.
can imagine how your yeah, and I can imagine how your parents must have felt like.
Exactly. And it was a whole lot of drama, right? Because I remember my dadi was fully like, because grandparents, she was all like bhoot pret something, kya ho gaya isko? And I'm like, bro, relax, it's not that deep. And yeah, anyway, and then I got help. And my psychologist absolutely changed my life. Within 3 sessions, I felt like I grew so much. I gained so much perspective. Of course, I got more sessions, but like within 3 sessions, I was like, oh, I feel so much better. And of course, I got some medication in the beginning as well, like SOS medication, but mainly it was therapy based. And he absolutely changed my life. Dr. Raman, shout out. And yeah, he absolutely changed my life. And I gained perspective that, like, given how bad I was, within 3 sessions or something, he made me feel so much better just by talking to me, just by making me share about how I feel. And I thought that, I have always been someone that has been very much into philanthropy, or I love helping people out. It's something that gives me happiness like nothing else. And so that's what made me think that, okay, this is what I want to do in life. I want to help people out with something that they don't even know is wrong. I want to help people out just by talking to them, not even telling them anything, but listening to them. And I feel like there's nothing else like that. It's such a noble cause, and it gives me so much pleasure. It gives me so much happiness to do that. So every single day I go to work, every single time I meet a client, I love my work. I absolutely love it. And that's the thing. I was always into performing arts as well. So I was really into dancing. I was really into theater and public speaking and all of that jazz. So for me, really, it was two options, that either I do psychology or I do performing arts. So I decided to take up psychology professionally because I thought if I study psychology, I can still do performing arts side by side. But if I study performing arts, I won't be able to do psychology side by side because I need to have my degrees and licenses. Yeah, so that's what. But now I try to, of course, except for the proper work in psychology that I do try to, incorporate as much theater or music or dance in it as I can, because that is my first love and it always will be. And yeah, so that was my journey into this field. And I am so, how I always say this, that everything kind of happens for good. And no matter how sad something might seem, like my anxiety disorder did, it always gives something good. Like I made a career out of it. So, but yeah, I mean, otherwise I probably wouldn't even know about this field. Who knows? So yeah, I'm so glad that it happened. But I love.
Yeah, I have seen some of your videos and like your photos of you like dancing and in theater and all. So that was something like I found out later about you because I had the impression of Gaurangi as the as the psychotherapist in my head, but then I was surprised like delightedly so you are also like an artist. And so they gave me a pleasure like okay, somebody similar to me who's able to sort of balance their love for something academic and also like something which is more creative. So how did you get into like dance and theater in the first place? Like was it something that you have always been doing since childhood, or was it like something that you picked up as a sort of like a way to express yourselves or something like that?
I mean, for me, as you said, it was always there. I mean, ever since I was a baby, if there'd be like a tune playing, I would like rock my head. I would do this with my hands, and or I was always a very dramatic child. I was always very dramatic. Still am proudly, but and yeah, and so my parents thought that हमारा बच्चा इतना नौटंकी करता है, इसको एक्चुअल नौटंकी में डालनी तो काफी कूल होगा. So so yeah, like I was always into dancing. My parents put me into Kathak dance classes when I was, I think, 5. And I have been doing that ever since. So I do a lot of dance forms. I have learned so many dance forms throughout my life. But I think Kathak is my main one. I absolutely love everything about it, the expression, the discipline, the joy it gives me, and just everything that it has to offer. With theater, as I said, it just came from I was just a very dramatic child. I was also and still am a very very loud person. मुझे धीरे बात करना नहीं आता. It's a problem. Like so many times I'd just be talking to my friends and they'll be like धीरे आराम से relax. Yeah. So I think that played in my favor when it came to stage theater or nukkar nataks or things like that. Because while people would be struggling and they need mics, I'd be like, मैं तो चिल्ला दूँगी, मुझे प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. So yeah, and then of course dance also helped me out with expressions and like how I should, use my body language or my face or my eyes or my mouth in certain manners. And I think that just played a lot in my favor. Of course, once I grew a bit, once I got into my teens, I did start attaching it a bit with my emotions as well. That age, subconsciously or unknowingly. For example, if I would be really struggling with, let's say, my mental health, and at the same time, I had, let's say, a theater role, like in a theater play, I had a role to play, and that character was also struggling a bit. So I would, empathize with the character to bring the character in my body, in my mind, and I was just able to play it very well. Just because I understood what it was going through, because so was I, and things like that. So I feel like that way art has always helped me out. That way I feel like your mind and your psychology and art always comes, hand in hand. um because so again, as I mentioned, with acting, it's like you are really able to understand your character, able to, embody the character, because you can understand the character's psyche, you can understand the character's minds and thoughts. So it's easier for me to take that in. Same thing with dancing as well, that there are certain movements. I remember a lot of theater workshops that I did as a kid had this, that they would have a lot of like expression movement. So so for example, like a lot of like opening your arms or doing that and things like that would be like letting yourself out, letting your emotions out there, and they really work, they really help me. So I think as a coming back to your question, I've always been into performing arts, but now it helps me very well so that my actual profession and my love can get integrated.
This reminds me of this common notion that is associated often with artists and musicians, songwriters, dancers, actors in general, that कि कुछ like artist बनने के लिए दिल तोड़वाना होता है वाली line, like from Rockstar. So like I have always felt like कि you are able to create a better art form after you have gone through a certain degree of emotions and experiences and all, and it always comes from a more natural place. So my advice also to a lot of young people who are like, I write songs but they don't feel very natural, they don't feel very authentic. So I'm like, go out there, live life, like go experience things, get your heart broken for the sake of it as well. Just like do things so that you have material to build upon, and you should not be ashamed of it. But that's like something I think of as an artist, but I would love to get your opinion on this. Does that make sense from the lens of psychology as well, in some way, that you do gain a lot more maturity, like you've seen so many people go through so many things? Do you feel that sometimes it's even necessary for some people to go through these emotions, in at least in some degree, not in a harmful way, to be able to get to a point where they're able to be honest with themselves at least?
I wouldn't say it's necessary. Of course, it might help with some people, and I don't even know if I can use the word help in this situation. It's just about how you cherish your experiences, or how you, okay, surely, like if you do go through something that was emotionally heavy or emotionally taxing, it does give you more perspective, sure. But if you're also healthy and just constantly aware of your emotions, it's going to play the same thing. So, you know, as you said, like Rockstar is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I remember the line very well, कि, you know, दिल तड़वाना होता है, चटनी केले से कुछ नहीं होगा. So it's not necessary, honestly. Again, so I, in my at least performing arts, in my work that I, although I do have an experience of struggling with my own mental health, I use a very positive approach. I use a very give love, give happiness, get happiness kind of approach. So I think it's really about using the tools or using your experience in a way that you think you can, you know, get the most out of. So sure, maybe when I started my journey, sure, during my undergrad, maybe because that time was still recent, I was fully, you know, getting very deep into it. Ki, oh, mera apna, you know, I've had my own mental health struggles. This is why I want to do this. Now I'm like, bro, it's fine. Yes, I did. And I learned so much from it. But, you know, my main area and my main reason is just to help people out because I like it. So with arts as well, I feel like as long as you love your art and you're very serious about it, if you're actually, you know, people say it's not that deep, it is deep. If you're actually deep about it, you can create art, you can create beautiful art without being hurt. It's fine. And again, you know, a lot of times, again, going back to how Rockstar was, okay, usne dil todwa liya. After that, as much as I love the Rockstar album, all of his music was depressing. It was sad. Give me some happy music, like. So it doesn't matter, you know, in how what you have gone through or how many emotionally taxing situations you've been through. It just it depends on the person. It depends on their perspective on of how they want to use it. Now, again, in my situation, I could have used my anxiety disorder as okay, that's it. अब कुछ नहीं कर सकती मैं लाइफ में. मैं स्टेज पे जाऊंगी, मुझे एंजाइटी हो जाएगी, पैनिक अटैक हो जाएगा. I can't do this. Or I could be like, okay, let me use my experience to do more. So or I have so many friends who are artists in some or the other form who, at least as they say, have not really been through any traumatic experiences, but still create the most beautiful pieces of art just because they learn so much from their friends, from their surroundings, from social media, from just, the things that they hear. So I don't think it's necessary that you need to go through something at dil to wala padta hai to create quality art. I think you can still create it if you love it.
I agree. Like, it's a glorified, romanticized sort of an idea, especially when, like, somebody's creating art, uh, which is about maybe, like, a form of love or something like that. But yeah, I mean, as long as you are aware of what you're trying to create and you're tuned into it, it is not always necessary that you have to sort of go through the negative emotions. Like, it could be a byproduct of just living and your positive emotions, your thought process, just maybe, like, just reading. Because I remember, like, we had a conversation about books as well. Like, I have a habit of bringing it up no matter what. So I probably would. I know, right? So, like, I remember we had some interesting conversations about what you do after you told me what you did, what you usually do in your daily life. I told you about a couple of books that I have read, and that's the extent of my knowledge also. So, but yeah, you mentioned something very, very interesting, which is something I have also personally dealt with in my own household in a way, is um, there's this idea that our parents, or, like, not all parents, but, like, most parents, the people the age of our parents, have about how mental health is approached, especially in this part of the world. So have you, since you've moved there and interacted with a lot of people there, have you seen there's a difference in how people approach uh, mental health and solving mental health in a way, or, like, addressing mental health in a way that is different from like, from India?
Yes and no. I mean, see, there are certain things that, you know, have been going on for a very long time and still do prevail. For example, mental health or someone dealing with their mental health issues being a taboo. That has always prevailed, and sadly, it still does. And but I do see a time very soon where it will be much more accepted. But speaking of that, there are also the other extremes where people just use that, oh, I deal with my mental health issues as an excuse for things. It's just again, like, I don't want to undermine what they do, but I've met so many people that just start using it as an excuse, if they don't want to study, or if they are getting on the support, even if they're, getting emotional and mental support, they're getting literally food on their plate and just everything, like a very holistic support. And still, just if they don't want to do it, they'll just use it as an excuse. So, it's both the extremes. So, and that I think prevails everywhere in India, here as well, and everywhere. From a parent's point of view, I would say that yes, it is more accepted here, because in India, it people seem to think about mental health issues as something that, ki, oh, trigger warning to say the word, but a lot of people in India, for example, would say that, oh, like, if our kid has a mental health issue, means हमारा बच्चा पागल है, or things like that. Here, it's like, okay, sure, whatever issues that they are, let's help them out with it to make them better. So these are the main two differences that I have noticed, that in India, while a lot of people, a lot of parents would like to cover it up, कि okay, किसी को नहीं पता चलना चाहिए. And they also come from a good place, right? They come from a place that, as a parent, कि okay, we don't want anyone to treat our kid as anything lesser, or anyone lesser, or our kid to have lesser opportunities. So okay, let's just cover it up. No one should know about this. But here it's like, it's okay, even if they do get whatever a judgment or lesser opportunities, we do need to provide them with the support so that they can be better in future. So I think that's one of the main things that I've noticed. But as I said, it's really changing in India as well now. um some clients that I do have back home as well, um so many times their parents are the one, who fully contact me, and they tell me that, okay, this is what's going on, even if their kids are adults. Even then, their parents are the ones that they're like, okay, our son or our daughter, they say everything's okay, this, that, but because of this reason, we think they might need help or something like that, and I've convinced them to talk to you. So, can you take this up, or things like that. So it is changing, definitely, but still a long way to go. But I think that's one difference that I've noticed a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you said one thing, like, that has also bugged me for a very, very long time, is these days, since a lot of people self-educate themselves, like, and like, have access to information, it has become way more common that I come across people, even like, friends in my acquaintances, friends, people who will just throw terms around that, okay, I am suffering from this, or I am like, this, I am on this spectrum, or I'm like, I have ADHD or this. And my advice to them is always, get it checked. If it is there, then there are ways to manage it, but don't self-diagnose, because um you don't know, like, we don't understand, like, we've made a lot of strides in understanding these things, but we're still, like, for a layman, it's very difficult to understand and distinguish what you're going through. So is that something, like, you also sort of see or feel that has been creeping up a lot? Like, you mentioned, like, people sort of self put labels on themselves, okay, I have this, and then maybe like, use it as an excuse, and that could also be the reason why people don't take these things seriously, because everybody starts using those terms very casually.
100%. I mean, one of the two of the common ones that I see, of course, is one when people like cleanliness, basic hygiene. They're like, I have OCD. I'm sorry, I have OCD. No, you're just a clean person. You're just hygienic, as you should be. Great. And the other one is that, if people if people like myself as well, you like to do different hobbies, if you like to do different activities, you're doing a lot of things at once, they're like, oh, I have ADHD, I have very raging ADHD. And solid, you actually might, but as you said, get it checked. Because another really risky thing that this self-diagnosing does is that you might think that it's, for example, ADHD, but it might be something else that is concerning. You know, for example, a lot of people when they, let's say, when they're spiraling or when they're going through something where they're trying to cover it up, mask it up, they will get into that. They'll be like cleaning frantically. They'll be like doing 10 things at once, not taking a break at all. And they'll just say, oh, I'm in my productive era. I'm in my serious era. I'm just doing this and that. No, babe, you, you need help. So that's what that's another reason why self-diagnosing or giving yourself titles can be very risky, because it might be something else that needs help. Sometimes, sure, it might not be, but a lot of times it is. So I think that can be very scary and can be very concerning. But yeah, so many times. And again, it's funny, it's also sad, but a lot of people, in fact, when they think that they have something particular, and when they get to know that they don't, they get sad about it. Like, because they're like,
Exactly. That
oh,
was the
अब मैं क्या बोलूं, मैंने अपनी पूरी लाइफ अपने फ्रेंड्स को बोला है कि मुझे ओसीडी है, अब ये मेरे को बोल
sort of
रही है कि
start
ओसीडी
building
नहीं है.
building their identity around that thing, no? Like
Exactly.
their identity revolves around that label or that thing that they associate themselves with. Okay, I have OCD, or like I am ADHD, and so they start doing things, start reading about it more, and they start associating with it at a level. And then if they find out it's not actually there, they suddenly feel very hollow and like
Yeah, they're like, okay, who am I anymore? Like, I
exactly.
don't know. So again, it's very sad, but that is also something that prevails. And I think that's the thing, like just acceptance of it in a very sensitive way is the way to go about it, because people won't have to go around glorifying the fact or giving self-diagnosis that, oh, I have this, I have that, if it was just treated as something normal, you know. Like, if I have, let's say, fever, if I have a temperature today, I won't for no reason be like, oh, मुझे viral fever है, या फिर मेरा तो हो
But
गया.
that happens, no?
That
That
does
happens,
happen,
you know,
but that
especially
happens in a very
back home, right?
comical way. That happens in a very, like, of course, like, for example, when COVID was going on, still is sadly, just weirdly, actually, scarily, not sadly. But yeah, like, would that be like a more of a comical thing? The other day only, I was with one of my friends, and she started, having like cough, and she was sneezing all the time, and she was like, guys, what if मुझे corona है? फिर क्या होगा? That's just overthinking. But if it's just more accepted that this is a normal thing, then you won't be like, okay. And I think if it's more accepted, you will also be ready to have a diagnosis. The second you think that, okay, you have viral fever or you have corona or something like that, you'll be like, okay, let me get tested. That's not what the first thought is with mental health. That, people just diagnose themselves. They will go till the age of 70 and 80 being like, mujhe ye hai, without a diagnosis. I get clients like that, who are like in their 50s and 60s and who are like, oh, I have autism. And I'm like, okay, at what age did you get a diagnosis? This, that's that. They're like, oh. And, they'll try to beat around the bush a lot because they don't want to say, I never got a diagnosis. And, but then I'll try to dig in a bit, and then they'll be like, oh, I never got a formal diagnosis, but. So that's what, there are people thinking that they have certain, neurodiverse issues and things like that till they're 70. They still don't know that they don't. Or vice versa. A lot of times people would be like, I am normal, normal. And mujhe kuch nahi hai, I'm completely fine. Later in life, they'll get to know ki, oh no, I had this and that, which is why I was acting this way throughout my childhood. So it does explain a lot of things as well. So that's the funny part. Like, as I mentioned earlier as well, with anything that's mental health related, there are always extremes. There are always extremes.
And in addition to the extremes, it's always a spectrum. Like, you people just label themselves, okay, I am either this or that. It could be like, you have a tendency of something, and that can be managed very easily if you get a professional's advice or help or something like that, right? So because like for me also, a lot of my friends who are aware of it or have even like self-diagnosed themselves, they'll throw labels on me like oh, you might be neurodivergent in some ways, तेरे को तो पक्का like तेरे को पक्का ADHD है. And I'm like, see, even if I do, like if it becomes a problem in my life where it starts affecting any areas of my life, like my relationships or my work or my emotional health, then I will go out and get a diagnosis for myself. Right now, I don't feel it affecting my any of my spheres in a negative way. So I think I'm able to manage what wherever I am on that spectrum, even if I'm leaning towards a certain thing, certain behaviors or certain things, it's manageable. So yeah, so like I always ask people whenever they come to me and they complain about this or like they just share it. I tell them like get a formal diagnosis or in a lot of cases, um sadly people come to me a lot and say like I'm feeling very depressed lately and it's been going on for a while and all of those things. So I tell them go to therapy, right? Fortunately, I was lucky enough that somebody close to me, not very close, but close to me, offered me like 2-3 months of therapy just because they were concerned about me. I had like back when I was really struggling with my own mental health back in 2019, and that changed me as a person, just as you said, no, like that those few sessions just really change your perspective about who you are and what you want and what you how you function and all of those things. So I was lucky, but whenever I propose that idea to a lot of my friends, a lot of people, even like my family members, I would have said that once or twice when they have shared a lot of things that could be helped by a professional. So the common thing that comes back is, one, it's very difficult to find good therapists. You don't know who to trust, like because you have to be so vulnerable. It's very different from going to sort of like a physical ailment doctor, where you don't have to be so vulnerable. You're vulnerable with your body, of course, but this is somehow much more intimate and much more like something people don't want to do. And the another thing that comes very frequently is therapy is costly. Right? Yeah. So I think, do you think like if we really have to make these things okay, something that people readily discuss, we have to sort of somehow set up a system where people can find good therapists, like really build that relationship with the therapist where they're vulnerable, and somehow with some system we are able to make it more affordable for people.
So, and this was one of my therapists as well. So I've gotten therapy twice in my life. So this was one of my therapists as well. And this is something that I want to do as well, and I still do. So I remember this therapist of mine when I contacted her for the first time and I told her what I'm struggling with, and this is why I want to see you and I want to get help. One of the best things that I love that about her was when I asked her that, okay, what's your fee and this, that. And she was like, okay, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm a student. And this, that, this, that. And she was like, okay. And then she was like, okay, so these are my charges, but are you okay with that? Are you comfortable with that? And in that situation, whatever quote she said to me, of course, like in India, the culture is that my parents would be paying for it anyway. But being still a student, feeling a bit guilty about how expensive it is, I was like, oh, but like, I do earn, but I earn very little. And I do understand how much education and everything you need for, this field. So I do get why it's, the cost that it is. But this is what I can afford, like whatever I could. And is that okay? And she was like, yeah, that's fine. So there are a lot of people that are like that, and as I said, I am like that as well whenever I take independent clients. And because this was another one of my reasons to take up psychology and to decide that I want to get into this field, because so many people in India, especially women, married women who face so much domestic abuse and everything, they usually get stuck between two things. One is to actually, of course, get the help. Two, okay, they got permission from their husbands or in laws to get help. How do they get the money? it's really expensive. So, so I think there are a lot of therapists, there are a lot of psychologists in India also coming up like that. I want to be one of those as well. So when it comes to charges, it can be tough, but you can find people who can help you out with it as well. It's just about asking. Because while of course everyone needs to make money, everyone needs to sustain their bread and butter, people in my field usually are in my field because they want to help people, you know so it's just about asking. It might work, it might not, but a lot of times it does, especially these days, because at least our generation, we really understand that it's really expensive. We don't want to take money from our parents. We hardly earn anything, even though we're in our late 20s or whatever. So should we is it that important? So yeah, so it's just about asking. And yeah, and otherwise finding good therapists, it's take references, ask your friends, ask people who have gotten help, or a lot of times even online, if people have their websites or if they're on some agency website, you can always see their reviews and feedback. And the other thing is, again, they might have great reviews, but they still might not suit you, and that's very possible. It's like, paracetamol is like the medicine, but some people are allergic to it. What do you do about it? So things like that. So in that case, you can of course like speak to the therapist, you can speak to the psychologist, tell them that, okay, these are the things that are holding me back, that I don't know, I've never done this before, or even if I have done this before, it was a bad experience and I don't know how this is going to go. They might just meet you. Like for me, that worked out, that my therapist just met me for the first session for a smaller amount of time, but she just sat with me, spoke to me about how she likes to work, just for me to understand that, okay, what is the rapport here. So she formed a rapport with me and told me about herself and made me feel comfortable, and then I was like, okay, I think this is a good way to go. And that's what she said. She was like, if you want, you can pay me for this session after this session is done, and if you want to continue with me, if you don't, you don't have to pay me, it's fine. So things like that. So yeah, people are coming up with nice approaches, and so it does work. It's, as I said, it's all about asking. It's just about asking.
Yeah. To the people who are listening right now, like, that's the advice. Go ask. I mean, yes, it is costly. That's what we're discussing. And that might be stopping you, but it's about finding a person you want to be vulnerable with. So you might find it on the first try, you might not find it on the first try. So go ask, tell them what you need. You might find somebody who's there to help you. There are people like that. She's one of them. Yeah. So yeah. So, like, since we're talking about this in such great detail, and very insightful, and I relate to it because, as I told you, back in 2019, I was personally going through a lot of turmoil, especially with that choice of being a full-time musician, right? So, because music just happened very sort of surprisingly to me. So, a lot of pressure from my own self rather than somebody else. It was just a lot of pressure from my own self to justify why am I making such a big step and moving away from academics. And that was causing a lot of emotional turmoil for me in terms of how I was treating other people, how I was treating myself, how my health was going, how my mental health was going. And so I found the right sort of therapist at the right time who helped me, like, for a couple of months to go through that. And while going through those therapy sessions and doing those, like, small weekly tasks she'll give me, and those would initially feel very silly, very like, like, I'm a grown ass adult, why do I need to do this sort of a thing? But eventually I started doing them, and they started becoming like a grounding practice for me. And eventually in a few weeks I saw myself changing, my thought processes changing, and I was like, okay, it actually does work, even though I had so much inhibitions for it. And during that time is when we were working on a lot of music, and I wrote this song called Scooby-Doo Jackie Chan, which on the surface is just like it's a dance song. Okay, so every time we play it, people lose their shit. They're just dancing their like their pants off, like just like going crazy. And it is designed in such a way. I just woke up one day from a dream, and um the entire song was sort of like playing in my head. So I wrote down the lyrics in like 5 minutes. It was like a culmination of all those months of emotional turmoil that I was going through, just written on paper suddenly. And I wrote like this huge story about this man who's struggling with this demon inside of him, like, very cliched sort of an approach. But I didn't, like, by that time I learned how not to judge what I'm doing. So I just kept writing it, and it was like he's trying to tell people how he's feeling, but people just hear this phrase called Scooby Doo Jackie Chan. He's telling that he's hurting, he's telling that he's in pain, that he wants help. But somehow it just comes out very funny in a contorted way, and people just laugh at him. And so in the end, he's just very confused as to what he should do. And so he starts acting out and starts behaving erratically in the hopes that people will finally see what he's trying to tell. So uh and then, like, we all sat down and we started making this song, and the intent was to wrap it up in such a fun little number that, like, people don't realize it, and they dance to it, and one fine day they'll again sit down with it, and they'll be like, wait a minute, that lines sounds sort of dark. I was just dancing to it. And then they go through the lyrics and they realize, oh, this is not a very cheerful sort of a song. There's something very disturbing going on with the material of it. So before we dive into the song and the music and have a conversation about that, I would love to play that for our listeners and for you to listen to it, and then we'll get back to the conversation.
Break the light, you don't must pay. Dance with the devil like you just don't care. Undress yourself out of the skin. Put some new feathers and a new pair of wings. How do you like my brains on the floor? Breaking free of this life you see. Making love to the boogeyman. I swear I could dare for you less. Scooby-Doo, Jackie Chan. Scooby-Doo, Jackie Chan. Now if you were wondering what that was all about, I have to tell you there was nothing about it. But now I'm screaming, 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 screaming. Scooby-Doo, Jackie Chan. Don't ask me why, don't ask me how, don't ask me why, don't ask me why, don't ask me why, don't ask me how, don't ask me high, don't ask me why, don't ask me why, don't ask me how, don't ask me why, 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 don't ask me why. And I'm just running out.
Okay, so that was Scooby Doo Jackie Chan by Kapow, and you are tuned in to Kapow Plus, a show where a rock band from India sits down with the rest of the world and collides with them, and, like, just talks about weird uh, diversions and conversions with music. So we have Gorangi Mittal here with us, right? And she just heard the song. We will get her initial reactions, what she thinks about the song. So what do you think?
Okay, so of course, like I've heard this before also in your gigs, and I think, as you said earlier, has to be one of the most fun songs, right? Like you hear it and you're instantly like you want to dance, you want to move. The beat is crazy. Your audibles and your vocals are absolutely insane. And just yeah, it's an absolutely lovely song. But yeah, as you said, lyrics kind of concerning, maybe. Maybe.
I know, right?
Do you want to tell me more about the lyrics? Like, obviously, I get you already said that a bit about it, but to actually dig deep into the meaning of certain lyrics, because obviously you're the one who wrote it. So what do you think is a metaphor for what? Like, do you want to tell me a bit about it?
Okay, so let's do this. Like, I'll tell you what exactly was going on and like, inside my mind when I wrote this and a few of the references that I've dropped in the song. And then I want you to wear that hat of a psychotherapist again and sort of like, analyze this song in through your professional lens now, like, and maybe like, so see, you've heard those jokes, no? Oh, I have studied psychology, also psychoanalyze me, sort of jokes, right? So I think for I know cliche ones, but yeah. So I think for an artist like us, like for Kapao, our songs are sort of like gateways into our own brains, right? So from different songs you can probably guess what kind of a person this vocalist is or this guitarist is or this with this bass player is. It's very evident from how we have been writing music. So so yeah, coming back to it, so this song in particular, again, as I said, it's a culmination of me trying to actually hide some very serious things behind very fun music. And I wanted to do that intentionally because I wanted to make a really, really fun song and just hide some of the most depressing and dark lyrics that I've written behind it, to kind of do justice to how usually these things go, how fragile mental health can be. That we often joke about how serious things are and how bad you're feeling because you don't want to feel vulnerable, or you don't want to feel like you're weak or you can't manage your emotions, because then you have this perception that people will judge you, people will think that you're weak. And that ties to what we were talking about earlier, that people, that both kinds of people who will use these labels to justify their behavior, but also people who will not use these behavior even when they know that it's there, because they're afraid of being judged and like treated differently by people, their work people, their friends, or something like that. So this Scooby-Doo Jackie Chan phrase, however fun, it's a nostalgic ode to like, me watching just Scooby-Doo and Jackie Chan, two of my favorite characters. Scooby-Doo is like from that mystery solving, like, that thrill, that dark sort of a thriller sort of a vibe. And Jackie Chan is just pure action. And I wanted to combine those two very different themes, that it's something dark and something ridiculous that is happening, that doesn't make sense at all. So when you hear the song, you're like, it's just gibberish, right? And on a first listen, it is, but then it is not in some ways. So I mean, the first few lines, like, break the lights, you don't have spare, dance with the devil like you just don't care. It's like just giving into those feelings where you just let your mental health be. Like, you're just embracing because initial reaction, my reaction at least, since I wrote the song, so I'll talk about it from my perspective. Let's not generalize. But my initial way of dealing with things was, okay, this is who I am. I am not changing myself. This is who I am. This, if I am acting irrationally or in a bad way to somebody, maybe that's who I am. Maybe I don't need to change it. So it's like, I'll dance with the devil, and I just don't care about how anybody perceives me, and that should be okay by me. Then the lines are like, undress yourself, out of the skin, put some new feathers, new pair of wings. That is just a very direct reference to me taking this role of a performer, because off stage I'm a very different person, and just wearing, like, I'll just being bare. Instead of putting on a persona, it's like, just revealing the person I am inside, however twisted, however dark that is. Um, then it gets really really dark. How do you like my brains on the floor, breaking free of this life you see, making love to the boogeyman, I swear I could care for you less, which is very self-explanatory there. Ki, okay, I'm thinking about killing myself and ending it all in a very real way, and I have acknowledged that it will hurt a lot of people who are close to me, but I am at a point where I couldn't care for them because I have to first look at what I am going through. And so when all of this culminates, I try to express this, but all that comes out in front of people is this ridiculous phrase, Scooby-Doo, Jackie Chan, and me dancing like a maniac, like I am putting on a show. And so yeah, and that's the story of the song. In second verse, I try to break that fourth wall with now if you're wondering what that is all about, to my listeners directly, and then I start like, now, if you're wondering what that was all about, I have to tell you there was nothing I wanted more. Now I'm being a little bit vulnerable and I'm screaming, and I let out this cathartic sort of scream out, and just again go into this ridiculous Dhum Pichak Dhum section. And then I'm just questioning a lot of things. Don't ask me why, don't ask me how, don't ask me hi, like, because that was also like, something of a little bit of a reference to how people expect musicians to be like, into drugs, and like, how that plays into a role, and then they sort of combine the two. Okay, because uh maybe drugs led you to this sort of a mental state and all of that. And so I'm saying, like, I don't know, like, don't ask me how, don't ask me why, don't ask me if I'm high, don't ask me if, like, wow, just like, very ridiculous sort of thing. And then the ending line sort of cements the idea that insanity is love. I have fallen in love with this self of mine, and I'm just running out. Like that, I've left a little bit open ended, leaning towards that this person is eventually thinking about really, really taking his life and ending it in a very, very sad way. So, yeah, now that I explained this song, this has stopped and ceased to be a fun song at all. This is not a fun song anymore. So yeah, I mean, so now tell me your reactions, or like, your perception of the song, because I am pretty sure it's like it has taken a different turn now.
Yeah, but like the first thing that came to my mind, I remember when I was like still a kid. I really like to assume I'm still a kid, but when I was actually a kid and not an adult. But I remember I used to think, I can't remember, I can only remember one song right now, but I remember thinking so many times that there are so many songs whose tunes are like happy tunes, happy notes, but the lyrics are concerning, or like why are the lyrics so hateful, for example. So the only song I can remember right now is Love Yourself by Justin Bieber. I remember
Hmm.
people used to love that song and they used to sing along. And I used to always think that,
Sing along, dance to
yeah, and
it.
I'm like, okay, while the melody and everything's so cute, very wholesome, the lyrics are so hateful. What's happening? And I could never understand, as a kid, that why do these songs exist? Like, what is the artist trying to do here? Because it's not in line. And I feel like with your song as well, and with like all the perspective I've gained with what I do, I understand it now that it's probably the artist masking something, or maybe it's just a
Hmm.
strategy. I don't know, but but yeah, let's go to the masking something thing, because that's what we're talking about. But yeah, a lot of times it could be that you don't want to look that, or example, like how we talked about it earlier, that a lot of people would just deny that, oh yeah, I'm fine, nah, nothing, it's not that deep, it's chill, it's fine. And because you have that is your personality around people, but internally you're going through something else, so now you have to, because you will get filled up otherwise with the entire emotional tornado that is going on inside, so you do need to let it out, but at the same time you're like, oh, but I can't completely change what people think I am, so let me do one thing. Let me put a crazy tune. Let me put some crazy dancey beats that some people might not even notice the lyrics, or if they notice the lyrics, they might think it's, as you said, gibberish. So they might think that it's a really fun song. But for me, it plays a role that I wrote a song professionally and released it out there about something that I am really going through. And that is a very powerful tool, I'd say, which is why I said earlier as well that actually I don't remember if I said it earlier or not, but I'll say it now. That art is an amazing tool to put your emotions out there, or even to understand your own emotions. It happens with me a lot of times that if I'm, let's say, trying to choreograph something, or if I'm writing a script for something, or just anything artistic, or even if I'm painting something, I might start it with a certain thought that, okay, this is what I want this script to be about. But as I continue to write, I'm like, okay, you know what, I just remembered that also. Should I incorporate that? So I don't know if that was true for you or not. You should tell me that. A lot of times, I said, you might have started with, okay, I just want to touch upon this. Okay, so I started about writing about this, but then, which is why usually second verses get even deeper with music, or even like,
Yeah.
which is why things like, in cinema or in theater, climaxes exist, because you start writing, okay, build up, build up, build up, and then I remember that, oof, I really want to write about this particular thing that I'm dealing with. And you might not even realize it, that you're doing it like subconsciously, but you are, which is why, as you said in your song as well, in the second verse, I think, or like after like the main bit, it gets really dark. And then it comes with the don't ask me why, don't ask me how bit, where, the beat is going, as you said, like dum pichak dum. So it's like pura Bharati dance. And but the lyrics are that, I don't know who I am. I don't know why I did this. Don't ask me, because I don't know. So it that bit of the song especially, it it really, for me, it's like a metaphor um for what spiraling might mean, or what sometimes a panic attack might mean, because the world around you is going so fast. The duties that you have to do, the work you have to do, your hobbies, your social life, social media, everything is just chattering and going very fast, like the beats in the dum pichak dum bit. But your internal dialogue is still stuck, because you're spiraling and you're thinking that, okay, all this is happening, but how should I cope? Don't ask me, I don't know, just let me go on autopilot mode. So I think, as you said, concerning. But no, I love how many layers it has to it, and it's very, very interesting to look at. And I think, I don't know, you tell me, but as an artist, I'm sure that would have given you a lot of catharsis to write the song and to actually put it out there. How did it feel for you, because it was your emotions?
I mean, it was in a way vulnerable, but I was pretty sure that I have masked it well. So all these years, like we've been performing it, singing it, making content around it, but we never sort of put the real intent behind the song on the surface, because we always wanted to keep it a little bit under the hood so that people find it, people realize it over time as they listen to the song. But must tell you, you're good, because like definitely you know your stuff, because you said the right word, which I was leading up to after this, is the spiraling, because that section is about that spiral, that panic attack when everything starts to suddenly pile up and go wrong. And we often, we hear these stories about people having panic attacks, spiraling, and those uh some serious people who even think about committing suicide. And we're like, he's such a rational person, she's such a rational person, otherwise why would they think about that, or why would they take that action? But that's the intent I wanted to capture in that section of the song, that when so many things are happening and you're dealing with so much, sometimes the rationality goes out the window, and even the most rational person, even the most logical person might start going towards a thought process which they are not able to control anymore. And that's where professionals like you need to jump in, or like their very close friends and family need to jump in to really put the brake on that, because a lot of people, lot of people who are very rational, very logical, are doing really really well in life, and we hear stories about them struggling, and it comes to us as a huge shock, and we're not able to comprehend this. And that's the thing that I wanted to sort of capture, that spiral that uh some humans, some of us go through every now and then, which
Can I ask another
from which
thing?
I wanted to ask you. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
When you wrote this song and with your band members or whoever, and you thought, or with your other friends, I don't know, when you wrote this song and you decided to publish it, or like actually make it a song, did you discuss with them that this is the meaning behind these lyrics? And if you did, what was their reaction? I'm just curious.
I, so Saira and I, we discuss these things a lot. So like I remember sitting down with Saira, and we just mapping it out, and going through the lyrics, and she's like, these are dark lyrics, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, now I'm okay. Back then when I wrote the song a couple of years ago, I was not. And back then I would not have even admitted it, but now I can. I was not okay, and this is sort of like a way of coping through all of this. So I told them, and when we started performing this song very frequently, all of us sat down. I told them what this song means. For some, it took a bit longer to understand what the song actually meant, I guess. But most of them eventually caught on to that the song is really dark. When they started reading the lyrics and started understanding the emotions that I was putting through. One very interesting thing that happened was when we were recording the song in the studio, uh, that's I think when these guys really really realized ki, okay, this is not a happy song, because I was in the studio and I was recording these very intense sort of laughs, which were just to portray a lot of deranged sides, the voices in my head sort of. And for that we dimmed the lights, and I was just in the vocal booth and just letting it out, just very cathartic, very creepy, also scary also to some degree. I remember Prakhar saying, if these laughs play around and I'm in a room alone, I will lose my mind. They sound very very concerning and very 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 creepy. And I'm like, yeah, that's the intent. I'm trying to channel all of that things that I went through and have seen people go through. Yeah, and all those voices, they need to come out for the song to be to do justice. So I think all of them did catch up with the song. They got shocked along the way a little bit, and now they know that I have a tendency of writing stuff like this. So they're like, is this a happy song or not? I'm like, right now it is, while we're making the music.
And has any of your audience ever caught up to it or asked you about it?
Oh, they have. Oh, I wasn't expecting it to happen much, but there have been few instances where people have walked up to us and they're like, the lyrics the lyrics are they're dark. One I remember one a woman coming to me and she's like, the song is about killing somebody, right? I'm like, it is. And a few of them have caught on. That's the thing, no, a band that is performing this song for like say 2 3 years, and we'll keep performing this, and every time in a room full of 100 200 500 people, there will be one person who'll suddenly realize while listening to the lyrics. And that's the feeling that I want with this song. It hits you when you're least expecting it. Or maybe you love the song and suddenly after 2 months you're listening to it again and you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't sound
Do
okay.
you like it though
That's
when your audience do that? When they come to you and they're like, "Oh wait."
Yeah, I do. Of course, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
I mean, uh as a song I as a songwriter, I enjoy that more than anything, because when we're performing, the lyrics sort of it connects with a lot of people, but the music is paramount. That time the performance is paramount rather. So when somebody comes to me and they're like, oh, that line in that one song, that just gives a very big ego boost to the songwriter in me. I'm like, yes, somebody was paying attention to the lyrics there. So, I wanted to ask you this only because since we have naturally come to this point of discussing panic attacks and spiral. And it took me a very long time to realize and to identify that I'm having a panic attack or I'm spiraling into a thought. I used to always think that the way it is portrayed in movies or like TV shows or this and that, it's gonna look like that. But I think for each person it's a little bit different. So I didn't realize that I'm having a panic attack much later. Um, I was only recently in the last couple of years that I realized, oh, that was a panic attack all along. Like, I was just spiraling in my thought process, and I was like, breathing very erratically, and like, I was sweating, and that was a panic attack. And so from what I understand, your job involves dealing with people who are right at that line, like, when they really, really need help. From what I understand, your job involves uh, dealing with people who are right on that line, like, when they really, really need help. Uh, so, how do you deal with that? I mean, on a daily basis, uh, talking to people who are thinking about some very, very dark and serious stuff, and how do you let it not affect your own self at the end of the day?
So I think this is one of the most common questions I get. Both of the questions are very, very common questions that I get. And about the latter one, I would like to touch upon that first. That how does it not affect me? I think um, the main thing is that I know that if I won't be okay, how will I be able to help others? So if while empathy is very, very, very important, I should not take it back home with me, because if I do, that's where it's going all south, because that's when I'll start to lose my mind. Now, I remember back in school in like 11th or 12th grade, one of my psychology teachers, and we all used to love her. She was super smart, super fun. We used to love her. And I remember this one time I went to her and I was like, "Ma'am, like, you have your degrees, you have your licenses. Why are you teaching kids like us? Like, what are you doing?" And she was like, I was getting an internship with this, that, and I realized that I was taking everything back home. And it just started to get me a lot, and I couldn't deal with it. So I had to stop practicing. And I was just in 11th grade. I was like, what, 17 years old, 16 years old, whatever. And that is something that, even though she shared it from a negative point of view, that, oh, I couldn't do it, thanks to her, that I took it as a, because this is what I want to do in life, I need to work on this. And I think from that, then and there, I started to work on it, that okay, whatever I hear from people, whatever people share their experiences and everything, not to take them personally. They are talking to me because they maybe want to just let it out, or maybe they want my advice on it, or they want my perspective on it. But if I take it back home, if I start taking it personally, it's not going to be good for either of us, because I will be affected. So my mental health will go down, and they won't get any help out of it, because I am struggling myself now. So I think that was one of the conscious efforts that I made from a very early age, that okay, it's not about me. It's not personal. Contrary to, I really used to do that. I used to make everything about me. I used to really play the victim card unknowingly a lot of times. And my mom and my brother used to say that a lot to me, that apne aap ko bechari mat samjha kar. And that time I used to be really triggered by it. But I think, like, once I grew up a bit, once I started practicing or studying psychology, I understood that I really was playing the victim card. But no, so it's things like that. So, which is why I need to make sure that I don't take it personally. And I think it's practice of all these years that I'm like, okay, your issue, I empathize it, I really understand it, I want to help you. But also making sure and realizing in my own mind that at the end of the day, it's your issue and not mine. My life, my problems are different. This is about you. This is not about me. So I think being very clear about that really helps, to not be affected on your own. But of course, still sometimes, like, really triggering things happen. For me, particularly, if something happens with that involves children, that gets pretty scary. Not scary, but something that I think about, that, oh,
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just a 8-year-old child. Oh, this happened, that happened. But it still happens sometimes, surely, because we're humans. At the end of the day, we're social beings. But I do try to, keep it in check that way. And otherwise, what you asked earlier, how do I help them out? Again, having my own experience with it really helps, because I remember when, I used to have panic attacks, or if I still do sometimes, I know that from an external environment, there's very little that can help you out, and doing a constant questioning, are you okay? Are you fine? What's wrong? Is the last thing that's going to help you out. So, and that's what I think, that, okay, that didn't work out for me. Okay, so what did work out for me? And as you said, that frantic breathing, that while it's like a sign or a symbol for panic, for nervousness, I realized that, okay, while that was happening, it was also kind of helping me out. If I was taking fast but really long breaths, for example, if we get into really particulars of it, that would help me out. So I would say things like that to my clients, that, while they are in that state, if they're having a panic attack or they call me, um, things like that. Then, for example, me, like chewing on ice or having really cold water would really help me out. So I would suggest things like that. Or so anything that is highly sensory. So I would always say have something sour. So when I used to have panic attacks very like frequently, I used to always ask my mom to give me lemon juice, just lemon juice, raw lemon juice, so that my mind gets distracted from everything that's happening inside to, oh, this is really sour. What's on my tongue? You know? So because
It sort of breaks the thought pattern that
exactly.
makes you.
Exactly. So I think that for me at least has always worked out, and for my clients has always worked out till now, that give yourself a very loud sensory feeling, and well, not audio wise, just quiet down audio wise, don't play loud music. But it might make things
That
worse,
was
because just because, with music or sound, there'll be like bass to it, there'll be high decibels in it. So when your heart is already racing, you don't want it to race faster. So that's why. But and same thing with movement. So whenever I sit with like a, in a very downward dog kind of position, put my head down, put my hands down, that always helps me out, that always helps my clients out. So things like these are the ones that help in a very crisis situation, help in a very panic attack situation, that have never failed me or my clients. So I would highly suggest people to do that if they haven't tried that. Or of course, like if you have more suggestions that, how do you deal with things? Because that's what I love the most about this field, about just psychology and mind, that there can never be enough solutions. Everyone's mind works in a different way. So there'll always be so many examples. So what do you think works for you in those situations?
I mean, first of all, I like to bring every listener's attention here, because this was something I was meaning to ask you, that for somebody who's listening and going through all of these things, how would you cope? And what would be like some things that you would suggest them to sort of get out of it, or like just get a hold of it, or acknowledge it in the first place. So I think all the things that you have mentioned, from eating something really sour, or like something really cold, just to like do something which is sensory, like loud that ways, not music wise but audio wise, but something that makes you break that thought process a little bit, and puts like puts a space between how you were spiraling, just like very naturally break that motion, introduce a speed bump of sorts, right? So I think, yeah, for me also, personally, I just use breathing techniques a lot now, because they come very naturally with the kind of thing I do. And when like I have this habit of writing, so when nothing else works, it's always me with pen and paper, and just venting it out on pen and paper, because uh, when it's in my head, it sort of like becomes a whole different monster. The moment I start writing it down, it sort of becomes a little bit more crystallized, and I can identify the pattern, identify what actually is bugging me. So for me it's just breathing and writing that has worked for me. And I agree with you, for each person there are solutions that are very tailored to them, so they have to experiment with your advice or things that I'm saying, and figure out what works for them at the end of the day.
100%.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. They're like a lot of, even if they're not very loud sensory, in a very sensory way, even just a lot of grounding techniques that are very general. So a lot of times if I'm on a call with a client while they're having a panic attack or something, I'd ask them to, let's say, name 3 blue things they see around them, or just see what all do they see around them, what did they eat for like lunch today, or things that, again, just to get them distracted, because while you are having a panic attack, um the thing that needs to be done is to break that, as I mentioned earlier, that nervous glitch that is happening. Um the treatment of it, or to think about it or give it perspective, comes later, after you're done with your panic attack and you're all right. And yeah, so I think there are many levels to it. So there are so many times where, like, and I was an example as well, where people would start coming to me because they're having panic attacks, or because they are having a panic attack right now. And sure, the first step is to bring them down, bring them calm again, but then also followed by what next, because we don't want this to happen again. And that's where a regular therapy or regular counseling sessions and things come in line. So it's a whole process, but it's very doable, and I love it.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like just one episode on this sort of a thing is not enough sometimes, because there's so much to do, so much to learn, and so much variability is there depending on so many different kinds of people, that we might need to devote a whole another episode on just sort of like techniques that people can use or have been using and things like that. So thank you so much for spending this time. I would love to have another chat with you, a longer one probably, on just very specific. Maybe we can take our conversation where we left here and just continue it
Yeah.
from here. And but before you go, I want people to you to tell people where they can find you if they are seeking help, if they need help, they need advice of some sorts from you. So where on social media or wherever they can find you, please let them know right now.
Of course. Right. So if anyone ever wants to reach out to me, of course, like, one is that they can just contact you. Uh, just give me a referral. Or of course, just reach out. You can reach out on my email, which is Gorangi, it's my name, dot mittal @gmail.com. Or you can reach out to me on my Instagram. Although that's way personal to me, but if you find me there, you can. That's Indic Goddess. And yeah, just if you need any help, if you need any advice related to your mental health, and if there's any way I can help you, honestly, I would absolutely love to. And yeah, that I'm so happy that I was here, because, like, I love what you guys do. And Saira is one of my closest friends, and I'm so happy, and I always say this to her whenever I'm talking to her, that I'm so happy that you're a part of Kapow, because I absolutely love everything that you do. Everything that you do is so thoughtful, and yeah, I love it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so all the people who are listening, she's the one you go for for therapy, because probably I'll be also going there. I think because within the band, just trust me, being in a band like Kapow, all the members need therapy, because how we function, how we call each other names, and the arguments we have, and the discussions we have, the songs we are writing, we also need therapy. And she's gonna be the in-house Kapow therapist, I guess, for our future future endeavors. So go and find Gorangi on her email, drop us a message, we'll add those details, we'll connect you if you need any sort of help. If you are studying also, if you're a student who needs a little bit more guidance in the field, what you can do, feel free to reach out to us or to her directly. It'll be fun. I attest you, she's a very very fun person. This is not the first time I'm having such a long chat with her. Yeah. So thank you so much, Gorangi. I hope to see you soon. Hopefully that we'll get Kapow to London as well very soon.
Yes, we need
There-
it.
there
We
we are.
need London to see Kapow. We need London to experience Kapow.
Definitely. We're gonna do that very, very soon now, because because high time, like, you attended one of our shows. Now it's time for the show to come to you.
Yes. Come on. This is what I'll pay. This is what my fee is for being your in-house therapist. Come to me.
Very serious. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'll hope to see you again really, really soon. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Say bye to it. Oh, okay. Okay. Before you leave, you have to say our catchphrase, of course. Like, what time is it? It's kapow time. So we'll do it together. I'll ask the question. What time is it?
It's kapow time. Woohoo! Let's go.
Thank you so much. Chalo, I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Okay, so that was Garangi Mittal providing us some very, very insightful tips and tricks and advice, and also breaking down our song Scooby-Doo Jackie Chan from her professional lens. Now let's move on to something really, really fun, which involves all the Kapow members, and it'll surely be chaotic. So get ready. But before that, we have a song that will play for you all to get you in the mood from all this heavy stuff. Let's play Cardio by Kapow and then head to the fun sec.
Heat up our bodies, push it, light up the party, move it like no one's watching, pull it, ooh, let's get naughty. Walking in the club with no inhibition, looking around with a sick intention, sneaking from behind and pull you closer, ready to lose ourselves tonight. We know how to party. 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 We just like to party. Flip it, there ain't no stopping. Spread it, tell me you want it. Lick it, just how you like it. Spin it, we like it dirty. Walking in the club with no inhibition, looking around with a sick intention, sneaking from behind and pull you closer, ready to lose ourselves tonight. We know how to party. 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 We just like to party. Walking in the club with no inhibition, looking around with a sick intention, sneaking from behind and pull me closer, ready to lose ourselves tonight. We know how to party. 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 We know how to party.
चलो भाई, बहुत हुआ गाना शाना, अब है जीप को घुमाना. Alright, so we have a lot of tongue twisters. सबको एक एक टंग ट्विस्टर मिलेगी, ठीक है? उसको 3-3 बार बोलना है सबको.
मिलेगा या मिलेगी पहले डिसाइड कर.
वो सारा से पूछते हैं. चलो मिलेगा, मिलेगी. चलो एक काम करते हैं, सब छोड़ते हैं. सब कुछ, सब टंग ट्विस्टर.
न्यू फन सेगमेंट.
हाँ.
सारा जेंडर बताएगी चीजों. सारा जेंडर
ट्रक
बताएगी
होता है या
चीजों.
होती है?
क्या क्या होता है?
ट्रक होता है या होती है?
ट्रक होता है क्योंकि ट्रक इज बिग.
अच्छा ऑटो
और छोटा ट्रक होती है
ऑटो होती है गाइस प्लीज नोट
बिकॉज ऑटो इज स्मॉल
तो
स्कूटर भी होती है बिकॉज वो चलती है
और कबूतर
कबूतर होती है
और कबूतरी
डजंट एग्जिस्ट
that's an unpopular opinion.
कबूतरी doesn't exist.
ओके लेट्स गेट बैक टू देखो इस पे बाद में दोबारा आते हैं
ये फन सेगमेंट हम आगे जाके कंटिन्यू करेंगे बट फॉर नाउ अब जीप घुमाते हैं हम लोग अपनी
अरे यार
like
जो
I said-
रेफरेंस
like I said Sarah you remember we'll make it steamy so call back for that we'll start with Mayank
ओके
ठीक है so the tongue twister for you we have is very famous Indian tongue twister ये हम बचपन से सुनते आ रहे हैं और आजकल के बचपन के बच्चे भी सुनते हुए आ रहे हैं और आगे के भी बच्चे बचपन से
हाँ we
सुनते
get
आते
it you are
रहेंगे।
old आगे
Yes. So it starts चंदू के चाचा ने चंदू की चाची को चांदनी चौक में चांदनी रात में चांदी के चमचे से चटनी चटाई
ये देखो रेसिस्ट हो रहे हैं क्योंकि मैं चांदनी चौक में रहता हूँ तो मेरे को वो वाला दिया गया है
चटनी चाहिए नहीं मुझे तो कुछ और चाहिए चटवाने के लिए बस
अब ये वापस रिटेल
चलो लेट्स गो चलो
यहाँ
मैं
पे हम
मैं अपना
lose
टंग
कर
ट्विस्टर
चुके हैं।
बोलता हूँ ठीक है सो कितनी बार बोलना है
10 बार 3 बार अच्छा चल ना तेरा ना मेरा 2 बार
मच्छी मार्केट है क्या
3 बार
चंदू के चाचा ने चंदू की चाची को चांदनी रात में चांदनी चौक में चांदी के चम्मच से चटनी चटाई चंदू के चाचा ने चंदू की चाची को चांदनी रात में चांदनी चौक में चांदी के चम्मच से चटनी चटाई चंदू के चाचा ने चंदू की चाची को चांदनी रात में चांदनी चौक में चांदी के चम्मच से चटनी चटाई और चंदू के चाचा
ठीक है एक वर्ड इधर उधर हो गए थे बट ठीक है इट्स फाइन
कोई नहीं वो मैंने
गिव इट टू यू
ठीक है
ठीक है तो अब हम जाते हैं वैसे सही लगा सबको या कुछ
ठीक था आई मीन पॉसिबल
मेरे हिसाब से अनफेयर है वो
हाँ वो
बचपन
वही
से
रहता है
बुलवाना
वो,
चाहिए।
exactly.
बचपन से
देखो,
करवाते ही होंगे
सही बात है सही
चांदनी
बात
चौक तो बहुत हो गया कुछ और बुलवाना चाहिए हम लोगों को ना कि कहीं और पे चटनी चटाई या फिर you know
No,
what
no.
I
कैन वी
want.
मूव ऑन फ्रॉम चटाना
ठीक है तो नेक्स्ट अप वी हैव इज ऋतिक आर यू रेडी
नो
तू पहले दिख नहीं रहा तू कहाँ है
मैं कैमोफ्लेज हो रहा हूँ
ओके तेरे लिए है नीली रेल लाल रेल
अच्छा फॉर कॉन्टेक्स्ट रीरी ट्रेन सेक्सुअल है
यार
ट्रेन से हम नहीं
जिन लोगों को नहीं पता ट्रेन सेक्सुअल पीपल आर दोस्त जो ट्रेन को देख के जो थोड़े एक्साइटेड हो जाते हैं
मैं ट्रांसजेंडर हूँ
तो रीरी अरे भाई साहब एकदम
और मेरे को स्किज़ोट्रेनिया है
रीरी को ट्रेन
तेरी फेवरेट मूवी क्या हाउ टू ट्रेन योर ड्रैगन
नहीं ट्रेन स्पॉटिंग
हाँ
चलो बोलो
बोल।
बोलो ट्विस्टर बोलो
नीली रेल लाल रेल
नीली रेल लाल रेल
अरे नीली
क्या क्यों रहा है भाई
शताब्दी नहीं है ये आराम आराम से
शताब्दी सेक्सुअल
नीली रेल लाल रेल नीली रेल अरे मैं पहले आराम से ही नहीं बोल पाऊंगा इसे नीली रेल लाल रेल पहले नहीं नीली रेल लाल रेल नीली रेल लाल रेल नीली रेल लाल रेल
ठीक है हम तेरे को नहीं दे रहे हैं बट वेल गुड ट्राई
हाँ कोई नहीं दे रहा वैसे मुझे
ओके ट्रेन सेक्शन सो नेक्स्ट अप वी हैव सायरा ठीक है ये सायरा वाला थोड़ा सा टफ है ये मैं भी नहीं बोल पाऊंगा शायद
बोल के दिखा। 3 बार बोल के
क्या
दिखा
तू देख के बोलना चाहती है
What is it?
इट्स जस्ट समथिंग आई कांट
अरे 3 बार बोल के बताओ
ओके
उसको
ठीक है
तेज
3 बार तो कतई नहीं बोलूंगा
तीन तेज 3 बार ऐसे बिल्कुल जिससे उसे पता
मैं।
रहे कि कैसे करना
नहीं शट अप
है डेमो
ओके
Lead by example.
ओके एग्जांपल भी बहुत अच्छा नहीं है ओके ये है टंग ट्विस्टर बहुत मुश्किल हियर इट गोस तोला राम तोला तोल के तेल में तल गया तुला हुआ तोला तले के तले हुए तेल में तला गया
अब
ये
गुटखा
क्या
थूक के बोल।
तुतुल पुतुल
अब गुटखा थूक के
क्या
बोल
बोल रहे हो अले यार चलो बोलो
अब पान थूक के बोलिए मियां
Why did I get the most difficult one?
बिकॉज
Because No, I won't say it.
थैंक यू सो मच। ये तो दिखा दे यार उसको, ये कैसे ही बोलेगी बेचारी।
भाई सब लोग हाथ उठाओ जो चाहता है कि ये देख के बोले।
हाँ यार मतलब और कैसे बोले।
क्या देखना?
मतलब दिखा दो।
क्या?
वही जो मुझे दिखाया था थोड़ी देर पहले।
क्या?
I can do this.
गाइस गेट अ रूम।
Wait, where is it?
The third one, second one.
Oh, हाँ, okay. तोला राम ताला तोल के तेल में तल गया, तुला हुआ तोला ताले के तले हुए तेल में तला गया।
Oh, nice.
तोला राम
स्पोक टू सुन रुक जा।
तोला राम
लास्ट वाला बिना देखे try करियो। लास्ट वाला बिना देखे ट्राई करियो।
तोला राम ताला तोल के तेल में तल गया, तुला हुआ तोला ताला तेल के तोले में तल गया।
What? ये क्या? कुछ और बोल दिया इसने।
I gave up halfway through. तोला राम ताला तोल के तेल में तल गया, तुला हुआ तोला ताले के तोले में तल गया। That is my best.
Okay, ठीक है। Good try, good try.
अब
अच्छा था।
विनोद के लिए हमने कस्टम जो लिखा था सालों पहले वो लेके आते हैं।
ओ हाँ, so विनोद के लिए हमारा डेडिकेटेड
कस्टम
कस्टम टंग ट्विस्टर है
Oh
और
my
ये
God,
हमने
okay.
कॉपीराइट करा रखा है।
करा लेंगे इस एपिसोड के
Paper
आने
judge.
तक।
हाँ, पेपर्स
Patent pending.
ठीक है,
पेटेंट पेंडिंग।
पेटेंट पेंडिंग यस। तो विनोद तेरे लिए है गीली गिलहरी गिरी गहरी गहरी गिरी गीली गिलहरी।
ओके
अब इसको इंग्लिश में बोलना है तेरे को।
नहीं भाई तो हिंदी में बोलते 30 मिनट निकल जाएंगे।
ट्राई करियो, ठीक है? अभी नहीं, बाद में।
Okay.
अभी हिंदी में बोल।
फिर से क्या है
गीली गिलहरी गिरी गहरी गहरी गिरी गीली गिलहरी।
तेरी डेली एक्टिविटीज पे भी।
यस।
गीली गिलहरी गहरी गिरी
हाँ जी, हाँ जी।
फिर से क्या है एक सेकंड
गीली
गीली
गिलहरी
गीली गिलहरी गिरी गहरी ओके
एक्टिव पैसिव यार।
गीली गिलहरी
अच्छा,
गिरी गहरी
क्यों लड़ रहे हो?
गहरी
लड़ क्यों
गीली
रहे हो?
गिलहरी
अच्छा उसको बोलने दो।
गीली गिलहरी गिरी गहरी गहरी गिरी गीली गिलहरी
कहाँ था बीच में?
हाँ
अब हम बस फालतू में विनोद को बुली करते हैं।
गीली गिलहरी गिरी गहरी गहरी गिरी गीली गिलहरी गिरी गीली गिलहरी गिरी गहरी गहरी गिरी गीली गिलहरी गिरी गीली गिलहरी गहरी
ऊपर कहाँ है वैसे गिलहरी है तो बता।
गीली गिलहरी गिरी गहरी गहरी गिरी गीली गिलहरी ओके दैट्स द बेस्ट आई कैन डू।
चलो
और the best
तेरे
one
से भी तो
this
पूछेंगे यार। दिखा
हेलो, ये कैसा है? शिकारी का शिकार हो रहा है यहाँ पे।
यस।
प्लग।
गाना's not out yet.
हाँ तो जब आएगा पर कौन सा वाला बुलवाएं यार तेरे से।
भाई एक ही नाम लिखा है ना।
हाँ यार ये बोल के दिखा। चलो तेरे को बोलना है ऊंट ऊंचा ऊंट की पीठ ऊंची ऊंची पूंछ ऊंट की।
ओके। ऊंट ऊंचा ऊंट की पीठ
अरे
ऊंची।
तेरे जमाने का ये बोल जल्दी बोल।
ऊंट ऊंचा ऊंट की पीठ ऊंची ऊंची
ऊंची पूंछ ऊंट की।
ऊंची पूंछ।
बस जल्दी बोलना है। ऊंट
की।
ऊंचा
ऊंट ऊंचा ऊंट की
हाँ,
पीठ।
ऊंट ऊंचा।
ऊंट ऊंचा ऊंट की पीठ ऊंची ऊंची पीठ ऊंट की।
ऊंची पूंछ।
ऊंची पीठ। पीठ ऊंची है। दोनों ऊंचे हैं।
दोनों ऊंचे हैं बट अलग अलग टाइम पे।
अगर पीठ ऊंची है
ऊंट ऊंचा ऊंट की पीठ ऊंची ऊंची पूंछ ऊंट की।
ऊंट ऊंचा ऊंट की पीठ ऊंची ऊंची पूंछ ऊंट की।
हाँ तो 3 बार बोलना है जल्दी जल्दी।
नहीं यार,
I
इसका कोई
so
better- I
wanna
think
hear
इसका-
you mess this up.
नहीं, I think इसका कोई बेटर तरीका हो सकता है।
चल
बोलने
ऐसे
का।
बोल। चल रुक जा। इसको मेलेडी बना देते चलो। ऊंट ऊंचा ऊंट की पीठ ऊंची ऊंची पूंछ ऊंट की। ट्राई कर।
ऊंट ऊंचा ऊंट की पीठ ऊंची ऊंची पूंछ ऊंट की। ओह!
चल तू गा।
ऊंट ऊंचा ऊंट की पीठ ऊंची ऊंची पूंछ ऊंट की।
तू गा।
ऊंट ऊंचा ऊंट की पीठ ऊंची
तू गा।
मैं तो बोल ही नहीं पाऊंगा, गाने की तो दूर की बात है। ऊंट ऊंटा। लेट मी ट्राई अगेन। ऊंट ऊंचा ऊंट की पीठ ऊंची ऊंची पूंछ ऊंट की।
क्या बात है क्या बात
नाइस
है। इस पे गाना बनाते हैं, चलो। टंग ट्विस्टर पे गाना बना देंगे।
डन भाई डन।
ऊंट ऊंचा इज द टाइटल ऑफ द सॉन्ग।
ठीक है, आई थिंक सही था, बढ़िया था। आई थिंक सबसे मुश्किल
भाई,
सायरा का था।
I think मेरी जी मुझे सूख
बट तेरे को
करने वाली है
इंग्लिश वाला
भाई।
बोलना था।
Oh shit. Okay.
आई वांट टू गिव इट अ ट्राई।
गीली गिलहरी गहरी गिरी. Okay.
नहीं गिरी गहरी.
गिरी गहरी.
Wet
Okay.
squirrel.
Wet squirrel.
Chee.
गिरी गहरी. गहरा क्या होता है?
तो सबका टाइम वेस्ट करने की बजाय इस सेगमेंट को यहाँ पे एंड करते हैं.
मैं अगले शो में
अगले season.
बताऊंगा. अगले.
Okay, it's fine. So I feel my tongue's gonna leave my mouth and probably sue me for the monstrosity. Mamma mia, mamma mia.
किसने लिखा है इसके लिए?
किसी ने लिखा हुआ है. Well, let's move forward and calm our minds to the soothing melody of our song.
भीनी सी जो ये सांसें हैं, मरहम सा गीत गाती है, धीमे से जो बाहों में तू आती है, जो बेकरारी छाई है, होठों पे भी आई है, छाँव में कंबल की छेड़ जाती है. ये आसमां और वो ज़मीन, इस पे बीती मेरी छोटी सी ये जिंदगी, सब है मिला पर तू नहीं, फिर भी चेहरे पे प्यारी सी रहती एक हंसी. अब मौत मिलने आई है, जिंदगी यूं याद आई है, आखिरी एक हंसी रुलाती है. ये आसमां और वो ज़मीन, इस पे बीती मेरी छोटी सी ये जिंदगी, कुछ है मिला और कुछ नहीं, फिर भी चेहरे पे प्यारी सी रहती.
Wow, that was an amazing episode. What do you think?
Bro, I didn't need her anyway, bro. She opened my eyes, bro.
Well, I mean, if I really have to wrap up this episode in one day, in one one sentence or something like that, I mean, it's all about nostalgia for me, especially because Scooby Doo Jackie Chan as a song really takes me back to 2021 when we were actually recording the song. I mean, I was happy playing the song, but then once Mayank started singing, once Mayank started dissecting the lyrics, I was like, is he okay? He is not talking about, he's not talking normally here. But what do I say? I mean, this episode, I surely feel was an important one. And I mean, I'd like to wrap it up here. Can you give me a beat here? So what do you think of the upcoming episodes? And
So if you liked what you heard just now, be sure to follow us on all our socials. It's Kapow Time, KAPOW, with an exclamation
yes,
mark.
don't forget that.
So with an exclamation mark means it's Kapow or Kapow. Can mean anything. That's up to you. So stay tuned for the next episode for more such fun and informative stuff. And what time is it?
It's Kapow time!